This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast, with original independent science fiction, written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the Science Fiction Podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma, and we are getting into the next novel in the adventures of Alibi Jones on this episode. There's a real buzz about this episode. Sorry. It's because we're beginning the Hornet's Nest. Huh? This all began as a ghost hunting story, believe it or not. Buck Weiss was doing a project back around 2010 or so called Hunting Ghosts. He was the editor and asked if I had an Alibi Jones short story about ghost hunting. Or actually, he just asked if I had a ghost hunting short story. It didn't have to be Alibi. And I did not. I'm like, I write science fiction. I usually don't write, stuff about supernatural things. But then I got an idea for an Alibi Jones related ghost hunting story. Science fiction ghost hunting story. Which became the short story, Alibi Jones and the Ghost in the Machine. And that was published in the collection Hunting Ghosts back in, I think it was 2013. It came out right at the beginning of the new year. I just check the date on that. It seemed like 2012 was when it actually got released, but its publishing date is January 1st, 2013. From Black Oak Media, Inc. And it's out of print now. I have a copy. But it's my one short story that you can't find anywhere. Because it became part of this novel. So it doesn't make sense to have it released as a separate short story. Because it's in here, in its entirety, spread out throughout the novel. So a thank you to Buck Weiss, thank you Buck, for, again, inviting me to be a part of Hunting Ghosts and initiating what would become Alibi Jones and the Ghost in the Machine, and then Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest, which we're about to get into. Alibi Jones is bored. His involvement with the destruction on Kismet is finally catching up with him, and his superiors in the Solar Alliance Interplanetary Force, SAIF, or SAFE, the superiors who don't like him have now got a little bit of grist for their mill, and they have a reason to sideline him, so he has not been receiving assignments because of what happened with Lava Lore and the destruction on Kismet. Back in Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her, if you recall. If you don't recall, no worries. Just know that he made some stuff go boom. and he's getting in a little bit of trouble for it now. We'll also be meeting some new characters like the crew of the Libra Campista and the Libra Campista de Dos, Hector Ruiz, Bob Bond, Anryoshi, and Janice. Expanding the Alibi Jones universe just a little bit. Some new folks showing up on the scene. And they do right in the first chapter here, so I thought I should mention them. So I hope you'll stick around as we get into the next novel in the Adventures of Alibi Jones, Chronological Omnibus. We've got Chapter 1 of Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest on the way on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. I don't have much in the way of book news this week, so I just want to say a big thank you to those of you who are patrons and help support the podcast, because prices keep going up, and right about this time of year is when all my bills start to hit, so I'm just reminded of how much I rely on my patrons to help keep this podcast going and keep the science fiction flowing. So thank you. And if you want to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. And you can do so for $2, $5, or $10 a month and help out the efforts and keep the science fiction flowing. Keep Glow in the Dark Radio glowing. Appreciate the help. We're going to get into Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Hi, I'm JC. My co-host Cindy and I host the Fix It Home Improvement Podcast. We cover projects that every homeowner should know and top-rated products for home and garden. And for fans of Mike, we keep you posted on new smart home systems and products like robot vacuums and robot lawnmowers that seemed like science fiction not too long ago. You can check it out on your favorite podcast app. It's Fix It, F-I-X-I-T, Home Improvement.
Now here's Chapter 1 of Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest on Glow in the Dark Radio. Deep space. Reality rippled. The void blurred, refocused, and readjusted. An ebony shape materialized amidst the glowing crimson, black, and indigo clouds of a nebula. Out of nothing came a hulking alien leviathan, ancient in appearance. The huge interstellar traveler loomed over two small cargo vessels. Independent trader Hector Ruiz owned and captained the interstellar trading ship Libre Campista, had for over 10 years, plying trade lanes around and across the border of the Solar Alliance, near humankind's depot colony. His long-trusted associate Bob Bond ran his other ship, the Libre Campista de Dos. They'd bristle if you called them pirates. They didn't steal from others. But they didn't always operate within the law, either. Like most folks trying to make their living around the borders of the Solar Alliance, they got by. Surprised by their visitor's sudden appearance, Bond began running every scan available on the bridge of the Libre Campista de Dos. The new arrival could be a threat. Then again, could be harmless. Hard to know, he said to himself. The thing outside was mammoth and glistening black. It felt like a threat to Bond. Something about it rubbed him wrong. Felt like death. Bond called over to Hector's vessel as he surveyed the incoming data. Holy! Hector, you seeing this? Bond asked. That's one giant dead old ship out there. Seeing what, Bobby? Hector said. Hector peered at the view screen in front of him on the bridge of the Libre Campista, trying to make out any details in the inky black surface of the new arrival. Very funny, Hector. Space junk, amigo, Hector said. Could be some serious salvage money. That thing is huge, Bond said. I don't know, heck. There's something not right about it. It's dead. Inert. Muerto. Didn't know you were so superstitious, Bobby. Hector ribbed his friend. You sound like my mother. Tell you what. You want it? You can have it. We're going back to depot. What? Hector asked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. It looks wrong, Bond said. All wrong, Hector. I don't know how else to put it. I'm sorry, Hector. You want the salvage, it's all yours. If I find something worth hauling off of there, you're coming back to help, you hear? Hector warned him. Maybe, Bond said. Hector watched as the Libre Campista de Dos turned and flew far enough off to safely make the shift into transspace. It disappeared. You're a superstitious old woman, Bobby, Hector shouted at the comm. Bond would hear the message once he crossed back out of transspace. All right, let's see what's up, Hector said to his crew. Bring us in closer to that thing. Alibi Jones let loose a bored sigh. He flipped through news feeds, looking for something to watch.
The players in his aunt's room on Series Central had every possible human news source one could find. There was still nothing on. Alibi could hear his aunt in his mind. There is no such thing as boredom, only boring people. He didn't know who she was quoting, but he hated them all the same. He was bored, and it wasn't his fault. Well, he said to himself, not entirely. Although officially still a part of the Solar Alliance Interplanetary Forces Mediation Corps, Alibi hadn't been receiving new assignments, not since he reported his involvement in the destruction of crime lord René Lavalour's city of Kismet to the Safe Brass. Though Alibi's connection to Kismet's ruination wasn't common or public knowledge, it was shared among his safe superiors on a need-to-know basis. Unfortunately, some of those in the Mediation Corps who supposedly needed to know felt compelled to act against his best interests. They didn't like him for varying reasons, usually having something to do with the privileges they felt he enjoyed as a result of his ties to his aunt. A few of them, including his commander, Brandywine, seized on his reported accident as an excuse to keep Alibi idled, effectively sidelined. Watching the news instead of making it. Boring. Tired of news, he tried the history feeds and paused when he saw an image of his aunt as a younger woman. A network was running footage from almost 20 years ago, back when she'd been prime representative of the Solar Alliance. He turned up the sound. The image shifted to two men sitting in easy chairs. A somewhat rumpled-looking older man sat silent, while the neatly groomed young host introduced them. Welcome back to Newsnight. We're speaking with Marco Valerius about his new book, On the World After the Eldred War, When We Were One. Thank you again for being here with us on Newsnight, Marco. Thank you, John. As I mentioned before the break, one of the ideas I find most fascinating in your book is the concept of the human diaspora, as you term it. You say it was both necessary and yet, paradoxically, detrimental to humankind, to the unity of the human race. Could you elaborate on that? Certainly, John. When Anita Capituna was prime representative, it was really one of her cabinet representatives, Nico Constantine, who was the driving force behind the human diaspora, backed up completely, of course, by Prime Rep Capituna. Of course. The Solar Alliance government at the time believed that one of the keys to keeping something like the Eldred War from happening again was to encourage exploration and colonization, spread the human race out across the stars so we weren't so concentrated in the solar system, so easy to wipe out and kill. Both Capituna and Constantine were originally from the Project, which made them interstellarists, firm believers in humankind's right to procreate and populate, planet by planet by planet. After all, Constantine was the primary representative for Crankshaft, one of humanity's first colonies. And, by the way, a direct economic beneficiary of the expansion plans of the human race. Are you suggesting Constantine was economically motivated? Aren't we all to some degree, John? That's a rhetorical question, don't worry. Actually, in my research I found very little evidence that money was a motivator. It was certainly a happy side effect. No, Capituna and Constantine and that first cabinet were doing what they thought was best for humankind. It was a different time. Indeed, it was when we were one. And we're talking with the author, Marco Valerius, here on Newsnight. Nice segue. Thank you, Marco. So, tell me, what was wrong with spreading the human race out into the stars? There was nothing inherently wrong with it, John. It was just... Well, let me back up a little. At first, it was a very good thing, although it was a little slow to start. Remember, humankind's numbers had dwindled, decimated by the Eldred Plague during the war. The early push for exploration and colonization was also a call to be fruitful and multiply, as it were, and in that the program was wildly successful. Our population exploded, increased exponentially, giving us what we historians call a post-war baby boom. Our needs shifted from humanity wanting to spread out to having to spread out. The SA government growing to view interstellar colonization as necessary, not only strategically but also necessary to relieve overpopulation pressures after the war. Plus, humanity has always had a kind of conquering aspect. The SA government, in effect, launched humankind's manifest destiny out into the stars. Was the encouragement of the human diaspora wise? It seemed so at the time. Who could argue with the idea of saving humanity? But it ultimately fractured the unity of the human race, John. Look at us now.
I suppose.
What I chart in the book is that fracturing, caused by the human diaspora. Corporations, nationalities, families that had long been allies became estranged. Spreading out as we have, we've made that inevitable, haven't we? And it's only getting worse. In my new edition, there's an added chapter on the recent dissolution of the new Catholic Church.
But Marco, humanity has rarely ever acted as one. It could be argued that during the Eldred War we only became one due to the threat posed by the Eldred and their plague.
I don't deny that, John. It was certainly a factor. For a brief moment in time, humankind put aside its differences and actually came together. Afterwards, without that threat, sad. The bigger question for me is why? Why were we so quick to fall apart again? Was it because we had literally spread ourselves too thin, with humankind spreading out physically further and further apart? Even so, ultimately, even interstellar boundaries were too limiting for some.
And you can find out Marco Valerius's answer to that question of why in his new book, When We Were One, out now. Marco, thank you again for joining us on Newsnight.
My pleasure.
Theme music started to play as the segment finished. Alibi realized he'd zoned out. The interview's end woke him up. A little.
Usually don't let that stuff play, he mumbled, blinking away sleep. Not always easy hearing about history. Weird the way they talk about my aunt.
It's not like she's dead, Alibi said, finishing the thought out loud. He was glad they didn't mention his father. Their talk of colonizing space made Alibi long for his cruiser and the peace and quiet of travel among the stars. His inactive status made that impossible at the moment. He searched for something else to watch on the feeds to distract him from himself. Would be nice to get out there again.
Looks like someone's been here before us, Hector Ruiz said, squinting at an unexpected feature mounted on the side of the ancient shipwreck. On the screen in front of him, searchlight dots from the Libra Campista played over a small section of the alien vessel's surface, occasionally lighting up an incongruously normal-looking, human-sized airlock door.
Someone installed a portable airlock in this old cascabillo, Hector said.
Work of the Safe Corps of Engineers,
Hector's engineer, Dr. Ann Ryoshi said. She leaned forward from her perch on one of the passenger seats at the back of the bridge as she studied the airlock on the view screen. The crew of 6 were all up on the bridge. Everyone wanted to get a look at the spooky old ship outside.
At least, looks like their work, Ryoshi added. From here.
Hector brought the Libra Campista in closer to the giant old wreck. His co-pilot Janice ran news scans on the anachronistic airlock as they drew near. Definitely safe handiwork, Janice said. Few years old. The lights on the bridge dimmed.
What the? Janice, what's going on? Hector demanded.
Power drain, she said. We're getting drained. Power plant is down to 80% power. Ryoshi rose from her seat and stepped up to the console next to Hector. She appropriated one of the floating view screens and began looking through incoming scanning data. The lighting dimmed a bit more.
75, and still dropping, Hector, Janice warned.
If it's that ship that's draining us, we're not detecting it, Ryoshi said. There's nothing connecting us to them, and there's no sign of an energy buildup over there.
Dios mío, if? Hector said, exasperated. Something's draining our power. Bet it's that ship. Easy bet.
He punched at the bridge controls. That was Chapter 1 of Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest on Glow-in-the-Dark Radio, part of the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus audiobook. that we are serializing in its entirety on the podcast. And so it begins, a ghost story, a science fiction ghost story, part of Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest. Began life as Alibi Jones and the Ghost in the Machine. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we may be encountering. And we've encountered some new folks. Hector Ruiz, Bob Bond, Anrioshi, Janice, the folks on the Libra Campista and Libra Campista de Dos. New friends as we make our way into the new novel. Once again, I can use your help if you're into the science fiction and you want to become a patron and help keep the podcast going. Head over to patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio and sign up for $2, $5, or $10 a month to help keep the podcast going. It's like a voluntary subscription thing. I don't have many subscribers in that sense, but I've got a lot of people who listen. So if you're listening and you like it, I could use your help. Again, it's patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. No obligation, of course. And that is all for this week. I am your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. And thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation is copyright 2025 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License, CC by NC-ND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at Incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.